Thousands of children and families in Marion County struggle with issues like poverty, substance abuse, or mental and emotional illness. Many local services exist to help families in crisis, but families often don't know about these services or can't get to them. Unmet needs can result in child abuse, neglect, or juvenile delinquency. The Early Intervention Planning Council, through the Marion County Commission on Youth's Early Intervention and Prevention Initiative, has created a plan to give families earlier access to services in the hopes of reducing the number of children who get abused or neglected or turn to delinquent acts. We hope you enjoy our monthly program, Our Kids, Our Families, Our Communities, and learn more about the local services here to help you.
Hello, my name is Shana Martin, and I'm the Director of the Early Intervention and Prevention Initiative at McCoy. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Our Kids, Our Families, Our Communities. Today is sure enough to be a great, wonderful show with lots of information shared about the Lifeline Law and information about binge drinking and the difficulties with that, the challenges and the concerns with binge drinking, and also talking a little bit about safety in preparation for spring break. March, a lot of kids and families start to travel out of town, and we want to make sure that all of our kids are safe. So we've got some great guests today to share a lot of information. So I'm going to start with you, Officer Wilburn.
Yes.
If you just want to talk a little bit about what you do as an IMPD officer.
Sure. Well, I've been with the police department coming on 10 years now. So my primary responsibility is a public information officer. What that means is that I interact with the media, I respond to crime scenes, so to speak, and I basically sell the public's the message of the police department to the media.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Dawn Finbloom, who's here to talk about binge drinking in particular and the Lifeline Law as well.
Yes, and I'm with Indiana Youth Services Association with the Make Good Decisions Initiative. I'm a volunteer speaker, and I have been ever since my son Brett passed away on August 5th, 2012. He died from alcohol poisoning, which is basically drinking too much, too fast. Indiana Youth Services Association has been in existence for many years in the state of Indiana, throughout our state. They have 32 youth service bureaus, so that really helps us to get the message out, because it takes a community of support to get this very important life-saving message out.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Senator Merritt here, who is a champion of the Lifeline Law and has continued to be involved.
And I've worked with Dawn for the last couple of years regarding the Lifeline Law and all sorts of issues talking about kids making good decisions. And the Lifeline Law, 2011 fall, had 6 presidents from student bodies from around the state. College Network came to me and said we needed this piece of legislation, and we worked on it, and they came in and testified on it, and it's had a couple of expansions, and we feel like if someone will make the call and they're in a situation where there's a need of medical attention, regardless if they're under 21 or over 21, and the person needs medical attention, make the call 911, and stay with the individual who needs the medical attention, and possibly save a life.
Okay, great. So Dawn, I'm going to start with you, just to share a little bit of information about your story and why the passion around the work that you do, and then also give us a little bit of information about binge drinking and the impact that it has on young people and on our community.
Okay. Well, what we do is we go to schools and go to community groups and talk about the message of make good decisions, and really teaching about alcohol awareness, because it's very important that teenagers understand, because they can only make good decisions if they have knowledge that empowers them. So they need to understand how much a drink is, what is one drink, and how many drinks you can have in a certain period of time. Not that we encourage drinking at all, because drinking underage is clearly against the law in our state and in all the states in our country. And there's good reasons for that. It's because brains are still developing, and they have so much of their lives ahead of them to develop themselves and to get their intelligence and to accomplish things. So,
okay. So what are some of the facts and statistics when it comes to young people binge drinking? Do we know how many young people are doing this in our community? How many die a year from binge drinking?
Well, the facts are that Dawn and I we've spoken to about 27,000 kids in the last couple of years, and it's widespread when we talk to kids and we ask them to hold up their hands. They know someone that has consumed alcohol, that has binge consumed. Having a fact regarding of how many kids actually drink, how many kids binge drink, is very difficult to focus in on. But the bottom line is if a kid is under 21, more than likely they have consumed alcohol, and two, have had the urge to binge drink. And Dawn and I were a part of a process or a program this last year that we were able to send 6 million messages on 13 campuses regarding the Lifeline Law, and anything in social media, anything from Facebook to Pinterest to
Pandora, Twitter,
and this is really the way. We've stopped making television commercials, and we have public service announcements because you don't hit kids with that message. The message is through social media, through their phone.
Yep. So for the parents watching this, what information do they need to have to be talking to their children?
Well, I think it's probably happening a lot more than they know. One of the statistics that just recently came out from the Center for Disease Control is that 6 Americans are dying every day in our country from simply drinking too much, too fast, and having alcohol poisoning. We're not talking about traffic accidents, we're not talking about falls, drownings, other types of terrible things that can happen tragically to someone that's drank out too much alcohol. But we're talking about just simply drinking too much, too fast, and their heart shuts down.
Okay.
I think one of the facts is that talk to your kids,
Yeah.
Look in their bedrooms, be a snoop, and really play the role of the parent, and be inquisitive, and talk to them, hit them between the eyes with the discussion about what is right and what is actually wrong. And I think a lot of parents aren't doing that, and I think that's a real emphasis that you need to have an honest discussion with your kids about drinking and what happens when you do drink 4 or 5 drinks very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I wish that I had spoken to my son, Brett, instead of simply saying don't drink, that I had said to him some education about don't drink more than 1 drink in an hour. I don't want you to drink anything, but you need to understand how alcohol affects your body if you do make that bad decision to try something, and so that you know, versus just going out there and drinking for the first time without understanding at all.
Yeah. And that's been a theme throughout the show. I have a lot of different guests on that we talk about a lot of things, and our focus really is on prevention. And that's the theme, is always parents taking the time to talk to their kids about a lot of different things. The topics are difficult, they're challenging. Yes, we don't want to be condoning the behaviors, but we want to say, but if you're going to make a bad choice, at least know what the consequences can be. At least be open about this. And the more we talk to our children, then the more the hope is they'll talk to us, and they'll ask those questions, and they'll feel open, and that they'll feel confident that if they go to that party, they can say, well, I'll have 1 drink, but I'm not going to have any more.
Well, and that's another
or
good
I'm
thing.
not going to drink at all.
Yeah, another good thing to talk to your kids about are some ways that they can make good decisions and how they can say no. One good way is probably my daughter's way. She said that she simply tells people, I have psycho parents. And they drug test me.
Wow.
So,
That's cute.
well, that could be something that you use, or it could be I have a test tomorrow, or I have an athletic event, or anything that you need to have a smart mind and body for.
What we talk to our kids about is if you're in a situation at a social gathering and you're uncomfortable, call us and we'll come pick you up immediately. And it's all about being very, very clear with your kids and talking to them about the facts.
It's very challenging to really, as you said, to quantify how many incidents occur in terms of binge drinking until there's a tragedy. And oftentimes, as a law enforcement officer, we're injected into a situation that could have been mitigated if there were, as you said too, Senator, as you said, more of a dialogue at home. What I find to be effective as well is that peer-to-peer conversations as well, and how you introduce those peer-to-peer conversations. Sometimes it's tragedy, that starts that conversation. Oftentimes kids don't feel comfortable speaking with their parents about issues, drinking, drugs, sex, all of those things, those hot button topics that are very challenging for a parent to talk to their 13 or their 12-year-old, but conversations that need to occur. One of the things we often recommend in law enforcement is to have a person who's had direct exposure to tragedy validate what you're saying as a parent. Those things seem to create a dialogue. Play videos, ask questions. What do you think about this? So in terms of being a force or a dictator to your children, create a dialogue, create an environment in which you can engage them and they can ask questions. You ask questions about them. How would you feel if you were a parent and you had to witness a tragedy like that? What would you do? So those sorts of conversations occur when there are those peer-to-peer, those mentor type of relationships, find to be very effective.
It is difficult. You're not always going to get answers from your kids that you like, but at least it's going to open up the conversation.
Dawn and I spend a lot of time on campuses in August because there will always be that 17 or 18-year-old kid who is on campus for the first time, away from their parents, and their independence is the world. And we talk till we're blue in the face about making good decisions and not going and binge drinking, and because you're on your own for the first time. And for the rest of my career, I will spend on campuses talking to kids about responsibility and about just because you can do it, it's not the right thing to do.
And we talk till we're blue in the face because we don't want another kid to be like my son, be blue in the face like he was, and kids are afraid to make the call because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble for underage drinking. But we have the Lifeline Law, and that gives them protection, gives them immunity if they make that call and they stay and they cooperate. And not only does it give it to them, but it also gives it to other people that are there as well. As long as they help the caller, they stay and they cooperate. Okay. So it can be several people.
Okay. And so from a IMPD officer's perspective, if you get a call and you show up on a scene, what is your response? What do you say to the young people that have stayed and are hopefully going to cooperate?
Well, the first thing is we've been mentioning here is the preservation of life. The fact of the matter is that you have someone who has a medical issue, and that supersedes anything that any law enforcement function at that particular point in time. Second and third order effects are completely different in terms of now you've alerted law enforcement that there is a problem. But in terms of the specific incident at that point, our primary responsibility is to save that life. And I think that function extends past people's perception of what police ought to do. Are we here to round up people and take everybody to jail? That's not our function. Okay. Our function is to preserve life. Of course, if you insert us into a matter that is an illegal matter, then that will be a subsequent issue that we will follow up on. But our immediate concern is the preservation of life. Now, I want to toggle over to something when you talk about people's fear of retaliation against the police. Oftentimes, that's a very tough issue because we represent the law, and the senator enacts these laws. And we talk about our judicial body and all things of that nature, and then the living law is there, and now the police department has to interpret that which our senators negotiate and discuss, so people's perception of that is a little bit off. So I think when we talk about this issue and this law, understand that the primary function of that is to preserve that life. So if people understand that, then I think they'll be a little bit less inclined to fear the police as they do their normal day-to-day function. And it's tough because there's your 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds. We understand. We were kids at one point. Now I'm an old man, but that's different. That's different.
All the way down to middle school.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Senator. So it's a conversation that's occurring at a younger and younger age is what we're seeing.
No question.
And you're very and that holds true from a lot of other issues that we won't go into, but we're seeing that children are being exposed to things at a much younger age.
For sure, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's just no question about it. And what we talk about the most is that all kids make mistakes. First of all, we don't want that mistake to end their life and also we don't want it to follow them around for the rest of their life.
Okay.
And with technology, with sexting, with texting while driving, with all these other issues, the technology is great, but it can also be very damaging. And we want everybody to understand the law, and we also understand that they do make errors.
Small gatherings can become big ones very quickly now with social media. And an important point is, with my son's case and with other cases like his, oftentimes the friends that are there are afraid to call for their friend in need. Brett was the friend in need, but they're afraid to call because they're afraid that that person's going to be okay the next day and that they're going to be mad at them. Well, there's protection for that in the Lifeline Law too. That was added in, that the person, like the Brett person, if they do survive, that there is, what would you call it, Jim, a diversion type of program or something?
Well, it's just amnesty. It's amnesty. It also is, it doesn't focus on alcohol as much as in need of medical attention. Person could have fallen out a tree, could have been in a fight, could have something to do with drugs or alcohol or any other situation. The whole goal, as you said, is getting the medical attention to somebody that actually needs it. And it could be over 21, it could be under 21. For those that are under 21, we want to almost incentivize them to call with the amnesty that is mentioned in other state laws, because this is in 17, 18, 19 other states around the country. This is not something that is unusual in states.
Okay. And so by that you mean as long as, even if they're underage and they are drinking, but they have a friend who needs medical help, they call 911, they are safe from being arrested on the scene because they are underage drinking as well. And I think you said that.
That's exactly right.
Well, hopefully law enforcement's gotten that message, but if a mistake was made, then the prosecutor's job would be to make that right.
Okay.
The Attorney General has said countless times on college campuses that he's never seen a prosecutor want to file charges on this sort of situation because of the Lifeline Law. And yes, they have immunity, and we're offering them, we're encouraging them to call 911.
Our state is progressive that way, I would say, in that we are encouraging good Samaritans. We're encouraging people to do the right thing.
What are some signs? So if I'm at a party with a friend, what are some things that friend may be doing that would say to me, I should be worried and maybe I should be calling 911?
Well, maybe a first sign would be they're acting unusually confused.
Okay.
That would be maybe a first sign. And other signs would be their color changes, they're cold, clammy, they're passed out, meaning you can't wake them to an alert state. This one is kind of an embarrassing one, but they lose their bodily functions. Sometimes that can be funny to kids, but it's not a funny sign. That means your body's shutting down, and that's very dangerous. And any of those, it doesn't take all those signs, just any one of those, and you need to make the call.
And I think repeated vomiting was another one that I saw.
I'm so glad that you said that, Shayna.
Yeah. And sometimes we've heard where people write on how many drinks they've had on their arm. And so that's something that we need to keep track of.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So from a kind of preparing for spring break, what safety tips do you have for young folks, college age, even high school age, that may be going to Florida and may not have the most or the best adult supervision, or going to South Carolina, North Carolina, going to the beach and they're partying, they're all staying in a house? What are some things that you kind of would say to young people?
It's one of those overused phrases, and we all know it when you hear the word drink responsibly. But what we can say is make good choices. And the fact of the matter is, we were kids. We understand that you want to have fun, and there's an environment in which to have fun. But you can point to a number of cases in the local area where children, and I say children because they're 17 to 18, have disappeared, and they're still gone. And you can't find them. There was a high amount of alcohol involved in those interactions. Your body cannot process. A person of my size and stature can drink a little bit more because my body can handle that amount of alcohol with ingestion of food. Now, a lot of these children are drinking. They haven't eaten. Their body mass is very small. 1 glass or 2 glasses of wine can completely incapacitate their cognitive ability. And then you couple that with maybe trying to drive, and then, so your wherewithal, your mental state is off. So when we talk about safety, we want to make sure that you do two things, okay? You have a responsible buddy. We talk about that a lot, okay? The responsible buddy is the person that you designate that's not going to drink. That cooler heads prevail. We talk about that a lot. So have that plan set in place. Don't leave your person, people say your wingman, don't leave your wingman alone, okay? Because there are people who prey on people who've been drinking too much, okay? So have somebody who's not going to drink. Don't leave the people that will drink, although I'm not condoning underage drinking. Let's make no mistake about that, and none of us here are. But we're wise enough to know that it does occur. Okay, so have somebody that's going to be there with you, and then thirdly, have a plan. So those are three simple things that we want people to be keenly aware of, and I know that we'll be able to add more. They'll be able to add more on this panel, but those are the three things that we often encourage in terms of our capacity as law enforcement.
Okay, can you state those three things one more
Sure,
time?
absolutely. Responsibility. Okay, have somebody that is not going to have somebody that's not going to drink. All right, have a plan. All right, and never leave that person behind. If they're going to the bathroom, go with them. All right. If they're going to the car, go with them. All right. So those are the types of things, because then you talk about this thing can span into other things as well. But if you have somebody who can think cognitively and has that reasoning, they're able to say, hey, don't go over to that car, or don't go talk to that person, or hey, leave them alone. So that kind of stuff is very, very critical and crucial if you're going to have fun, especially in a different country. How many times do we hear that's a whole host of people say Mexico. How many times? Yeah, that's a different country. So you're talking completely different parameters. Yeah, absolutely. So if you just exercise those couple of things, I think you'll be able to fare well.
And I say those are great things, even if drinking isn't involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if you're hanging with friends and you're going out, those are always good things. Right. Be responsible. Make sure you have a buddy. Make a plan and stay together.
Well, also, I think Dawn and I have talked a lot about never leave your glass.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Never leave your container. Yeah. And two, you talk about spring break, but we talk about the prom a lot. And we try to get into high schools before the prom, because that's kind of, it's almost like a coming out. And everybody's happy, everybody's excited, and it's almost like entering into being an adult. And alcohol and drugs really play a large role in that. And with the glass, you never know what someone's going to put in your glass.
And things are being laced these days, where you're not just having an alcohol in your drink, there's also drugs that are put in it, and sometimes it's in a bottle of water. So even be careful who you get your bottle of water from, I would say.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's the one thing I always remember being taught, and I never realized what it meant until I got a little bit more mature. But my mother always said that. She said, never put your drink down. Ever put your drink down, and don't let anybody you don't know bring you a drink or offer you one that you take. And I never kind of, I was like, well, why is she saying that? But because it happens. It happens quickly.
No question about it.
It's important to understand alcohol and the different drinks. Like you were talking about, the strengths of alcohol vary, and the glass of wine, it's different than a beer. A beer is typically 5% alcohol, wine's typically 12%, and hard alcohol is typically 40%. It can be greater than that. So you can have a large glass of beer that's 12 ounces, and that little 1.5 ounce glass of hard alcohol is equal to that big beer. So that's important for kids to understand that, and to understand the mixing of drinks. If you take a mixed drink, you don't know how much alcohol's in that. Alcohol doesn't always have a lot of flavor. Vodka is pretty taste-free.
That's right.
And then there's also the soaking of fruit and candy and all of that stuff in alcohol too. But it's still, the alcohol is still there, and the risks are still there, and maybe more so because you're enjoying stuff maybe in smaller portions, but you do more of that, and it still adds up, and you're still drinking drinks.
Yeah. Jello.
Yes.
And then sleep deprivation, because you're out partying or you're out dancing, you're going to a bar, you've got a fake ID, all of those things. So now you couple that with not having rest, not having eaten, sleeping in an environment or not sleeping in an environment that you aren't familiar with, and now you put alcohol on top. It's just a mixture of calamity. And in order to really protect yourself from that, you have to have a plan. And I think that that's important in going into an environment that you're unfamiliar with.
And that really made me think of mixing caffeine and alcohol. That's been a dangerous trend.
Yeah, the energy drinks.
Right, because you have a stimulant, the caffeine, mixed with the alcohol, makes you have the perception you can drink more alcohol, and the two are counteracting each other, and there have been some deaths from that.
Okay. So what are resources in the community for parents who are interested in learning more about the Lifeline Law, about binge drinking, drug use? I mean, what are some resources in our community to help educate both adults and young people?
Well, Indiana Youth Services Association Make Good Decisions initiative is really one of the big ones. It has really become the center point for the Indiana Lifeline Law, thanks to the work that Senator Merritt has done.
And well, we collaborate. We have a lot of people statewide that are talking about this, and we've been everywhere from Valparaiso to Evansville, and we've traveled the state. And in the beginning, it was IndianaLifeline.org, but our partners at IYSA have done a terrific job of really helping us form this plan of attack in these 13 campuses with the 6 million messages, and raising the money really from the folks that sell alcohol, because they're as concerned as anyone. Big Red Liquors, the Restaurant Association, all these individuals and their companies are very, very concerned about alcohol and our kids, and they want to sell it, but they want to sell it responsibly.
To folks who are legally allowed to drink
exactly.
it.
Right.
Any other resources available in the community?
Well, we have a number of city services that address issues. What I would recommend people do is just there are community-based officers, resource officers at each district throughout the city of Indianapolis.
Okay.
And we're plugged in with obviously city resources, so if anybody in Marion County or surrounding counties want additional information, you can call us. We'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction. And I think that there's infinite possibilities in terms of help, and we don't want people to reach out when there's a tragedy, obviously, because that's when people typically do. We want to have those conversations and that dialogue before there's tragedy, and that's important for you. Always have a plan. That's part of that plan. In case this happens, I want to know who to call, and I think that's why we're here.
Okay, and that's great. And again, the whole focus of my show is all about prevention, and prevention is about knowing what those resources are, asking those questions before the tragedy, and having those conversations, because the more we can start to prevent kids from even thinking that that's okay or making those bad choices, then the better off we are.
Knowing the law.
Knowing the law, yep, which is very important as well. So call 911. Stay and cooperate.
Exactly.
Did I get it? Okay. And there's also a pledge, the Make Good Decisions pledge. I will do my best to make good decisions. If someone needs help, I will make the call. If I need help, I give you permission to make the call. And I think that's very powerful, and young people throughout our community need to be saying that on a daily basis for a lot of reasons. So thank you guys very much for being the show. Really appreciate it. Appreciate all the information you've shared. Appreciate you sharing some of your personal story, Dawn. And I just look forward to helping you guys in any way possible to continue to spread the word and get the message out there. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of Our Kids, Our Families, Our Communities, and we look forward to seeing you next time.